What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react and learn about the Canadian Strategic Maple Syrup Reserve. So, apparently, this is really a thing. In Canada, you guys actually have a stockpile of maple syrup. Because honestly, this sounds made up. Maybe it's just because it feeds into the whole Canadians love maple syrup stereotype a little too perfectly. But this is a thing. And there's a video about it, so I'm actually really curious to learn about the story behind this Canadian Strategic Maple Syrup Reserve. That could be a tongue twister. So let's take a look.
In October 2021, Canadians were faced with a sticky situation. A shortage of labour and skyrocketing demand for the precious product of Quebec's sugar maple forests was threatening the nation with a case of bland pancakes. That's right, thanks to the disruptions inherent in the COVID-19 pandemic, the country's maple syrup supply was running low. The stakes couldn't have been higher.
Yeah, seriously. So during the pandemic, I guess they were having some technical problems, like logistical problems, manufacturing all the maple syrup in Canada. But people, you still want you got a deadly virus taking over the world. You gotta have your maple syrup on your pancakes, for God's sake. So the maple syrup stockpile actually came in pretty clutch. It actually came in handy. That's literally what the point of it is, just to have extra maple syrup for exactly that kind of situation. Is that really why this exists?
Panic didn't set in. Canadians, you see, are always prepared when it comes to syrup. The Maple Syrup Mafia, a trade group of maple growers that cooperates to maintain the precious syrup supply, were able to step in, providing at least 25 million kilograms of sweet maple syrup to the nation's bottlers just in the nick of time, averting the crisis.
I can't believe Canada actually has this. In America, we have the national oil stockpile, or in Norway, they have this national seed vault with all these different plants and seeds in case something catastrophic happens. And in Canada, you have the maple syrup reserve. And what's even better is, as silly as it might sound to me, it actually was needed, not that long ago.
This was thanks to the Canadian Strategic Maple Syrup Reserve, a privately held and heavily guarded compound in Laurierville, Quebec, that helps maple syrup producers maintain control of the syrup market. For in Canada, he who controls the syrup controls breakfast, and he who controls breakfast apparently rules all. Syrup is to the Canadian national identity as cheese is to the French. It is a fact of Canadian life, and
is that true? Because my whole life here in the United States, this is a stereotype of Canadians. This is one of, if not the most popular stereotype, that Canadians love maple syrup. So now, since we're talking about it, is it true? Canadians, do you have maple syrup all the time? Do you need to have it for breakfast all the time? Is it that, here in America, every so often you have pancakes or a waffle or something, and then you got the syrup. We don't really have Canadian maple syrup, the good stuff. We have this very artificial, they probably make it out of tree bark or something at this point. And life goes on. It's okay, syrup, great. In Canada, the fact that there's a whole dedicated reserve makes it sound like this is really, really actually a big deal in Canada.
one that they're proud of. The Maple Leaf even adorns their national flag.
Right.
First produced by Iroquois people long before the British and French colonized Canada, maple syrup played a key role in the establishment of Quebec, initially as a French colony and later under the British Crown. Known for its savory, smoky flavor, real Canadian maple syrup is expensive to produce, requiring about 40 gallons of sap for every gallon of finished syrup. Considering that a single tree may produce as little as 15 gallons of sap a year, this makes maple syrup one of the world's most expensive and time-intensive agricultural products.
Oh my god. Yeah. It's like harvesting cashews or something. How you gotta like pick them all by hand and it's not like a big yield. And I've just noticed how expensive cashews are in particular. But maple syrup, you gotta like collect all that stuff out of the tree and reduce it down and you only get so much. And it's a lot of effort for a really cool product, don't get me wrong, but I don't think we hold it so like in high regard here. And that's probably because in America we can't even make maple syrup really, right? It has to do with Canada is like in the perfect climate or like area in the world for doing it, I think. Okay. Nice intro. Cornering the maple markets.
Maple syrup is one of the world's most expensive food staples, costing consumers as much as $125 on average per gallon in North America, where Vermont's producers compete with Quebec syrup to keep prices reasonable.
Whoa.
Around the world, costs can be considerably higher, which may be one of the reasons that countries such as the UK and Australia have long found table syrup, a form of imitation maple syrup made from corn or cane sugar with
Table syrup? Never heard of that. That's some kind of British thing. You ever heard of this? Table. It looks weird being in that kind of jar. Table syrup.
maple flavoring to be a more affordable option. Yet in Canada, most particularly, table syrup is derided and mocked as a pale imitation of the real thing. You're not a real Canadian, they say, unless your breath reeks of maple. In a way...
Oh my god, really? Interesting. Like I said, here in America, we don't really have maple syrup. Like, you can get it, like, if you go out of your way and search for it, but the most popular thing is, like, the generic sort of artificial syrup that we get at the grocery store, and it's very sugary and very fake tasting, but it's kind of what you're used to as an American kid growing up. That's what you kind of think it should taste like.
Then, Quebec's highly protectionist economic policies when it comes to syrup have helped maintain true Canadian maple syrup as both a gold standard in condiments and as a premium product anywhere other than Canada itself.
Okay.
While making syrup is relatively easy, involving just boiling sap in large vats and filtering out adulterants, harvesting maple sap itself is not a trivial matter. The entire supply was once collected by hand, tree to tree, using not much more than buckets and nails. A spile is installed in a hole in the tree to drain off sap.
Yeah, they teach us about this in school when we're growing up. Even here in America, they teach us about like tapping a tree and putting a bucket under it. It's like one of the things we actually learn about Canada, funny enough.
Still practiced by many growers, this old-fashioned tap and drain method is time-intensive, and the sap must be collected daily from thousands of trees. The sugar maple gives off lighter and sweeter syrup early in the harvest season, with darker, richer sap coming later as the weather gets colder. Today, industrial producers use automated pumps that drain the sap from the trees from underground, but
This looks weird. Like, I understand this is the modern way to do it, but something about 3 different hoses, like, going into this tree, it's like, there's something weird about it. I didn't know they did it quite like this. Look at all those hoses. Just like, there's something weird about it. Is that just me?
But the sap harvest can be affected by anything from too much or too little rainfall to the harshness of a winter or a late or early freeze. Thus, a tree's production can vary widely from year to year, threatening Canadian flapjacks and donuts with the possibility of a syrup shortage. The solution, simple and yet effective, can be found in a fortified warehouse, where nearly 200,000 barrels or 45 million kilograms of sweet maple goodness is stored under...
Oh my god, is this an actual picture? I've never seen so many barrels of anything, let alone maple syrup. This is because, let me get this straight, because in Canada, it's a little unreliable how much maple syrup you can harvest based on the trees and the weather and all those factors. So it is so important to maintain a steady supply of maple syrup that you have millions of gallons of it stored in advance in a warehouse. Is that about right?
lock and key, guarded by heavily armed security forces.
The Maple Bunker.
Forming part of a 267,000 square foot compound about as large as 5 football fields, the Laurierville plant and warehouse where the sugar is stored also produces a large portion of the nation's finished syrup. Run jointly by a controversial trade cartel creatively dubbed the Federation of Quebec Maple Producers, the facility stores up to half of Canada's entire yearly output on site in 45-gallon barrels painted a pristine white to allow any leaks or damage to be easily visible.
Oh, here we go. This is what it looks like. Look at this. That's crazy. Half of all the syrup in all of Canada is in this one bunker?
The syrup on site can reach in excess of 200,000 barrels. During times of low supplies, such as in 2021, reserves can be released to bottlers in a controlled manner. The facility, opened in 1966, helps to stabilize syrup supplies in Canada and around the world. The Maple Cartel is able to release syrup onto the market when demand is high or if weather impacts the year's production figures.
The Syrup Cartel. What? Is that really what it's like? Don't get me wrong. I'm understanding the reasoning to make sure that the maple syrup market is controlled and the price of maple syrup doesn't go too high when there's a shortage. And I get it. It's just like so much effort for making sure maple syrup prices don't get out of whack. Maple syrup, like, you could do this for anything. You know what I mean? Like bananas or milk or gas or, anything that you. But in Canada, you guys have gone out of your way and chosen maple syrup as like important, like one of the most important things that you have a huge stockpile of. That's what I'm getting at, is like, it's cool. And it's really interesting how you've done it. It's just like, it just shows that in Canada, you really do prioritize maple syrup. It's actually true.
To the inherently unstable output of maple trees, certain years see oversupply of the stuff, while other years produce drastically less than the Canadians desire. Because the Federation cooperates in a central production and storage facility, producers are not competing for the sometimes limited supply of sap, and thus are able to ensure that factory employment remains stable and investments in machinery and forest operations never go to waste. Canada is far from the only country to operate such a reserve, although it is the only country to do so with maple syrup.
That's okay. I'm glad they kind of acknowledged that. Right, because around the world, people have different reserves of different things, and it's just funny, like, that Canada has the maple syrup reserve. It makes sense, because Canada does genuinely produce, like, all the maple syrup, so that's a big part of your economy, actually, right?
Previously covered how the United States has a secret mountain of cheese in Kansas City, Missouri.
God. I didn't know that. See, I can't, like, laugh at Canada for the maple syrup. The United States has a big mountain of cheese. I didn't know that. That's probably more, like, silly, actually. Objectively more silly.
There are indeed other such stockpiles around the world. Wine lakes and butter mountains in Europe or vodka reserves in Russia all exist, and they can.
It's so funny what humans, what we prioritize. Wine and cheese and butter and maple syrup. Like, that's what we prioritize, humanity as a whole.
be seen as something like a national security blanket to ensure order in times of uncertainty, putting paid to the saying that people are only 3 meals away from anarchy. While details on the security arrangements at the Federation facility are sketchy at best, when asked on a newscast about the security of the facility, a foreman told the reporter, "I wouldn't try to break in here." And with good reason. After all, as we'll discuss later, the Federation was hit a decade ago with a heist that saw them lose over 10,000 barrels of syrup.
Yeah, I know about that. I've heard about that. The maple syrup reserve in Canada. There was like some big maple syrup heist, right? That actually that actually happened. The syrup must flow.
So, is the Federation really a so-called maple syrup mafia? Well, it depends on who you ask. A monopoly exists when a single company controls most or all of an entire market. A cartel, similar but distinct from a monopoly, is a group of companies that cooperate more loosely to control the production and the supply of a precious resource. So,
What? Is this actually a thing? Like, is this something that the Maple Syrup Reserve is accused of? Being a cartel? Is this really a thing? Like they're controlling the supply of maple syrup, like in some kind of immoral way? What is this?
large cartels, whether legal or not, have operated in many industries, collectively controlling the supply of anything from oil to diamonds to even light bulbs. While it could be argued that the Federation of Quebec Maple Producers constitutes a monopoly, given that it produces the large majority of the country's syrup from one central location, the Canadian government's policy on maple syrup production is that it is a legal cartel, permitted to exist in order to ensure the orderly extraction of a precious resource.
It's acknowledged as a cartel. Canada has a maple syrup cartel. Like in America, we associate the word cartel with like Mexican drug cartels from the TV shows and stuff, and I guess real life. But so I think of it as like illegal activity. I guess not all cartels are illegal. The technical definition is just like a little bit of like a small amount of people controlling all the maple syrup. And okay. I didn't know. I thought this was just like a funny little interesting factoid about Canada. I didn't know there's any like weird cartel things going on.
Maple trees are vital not only to the supply of maple syrup, but to the entire economy of the Quebec region. Other uses for the sap include as a coffee additive in braising meats, brewing beer, making herbal tea, liquor, vinegar, and even as a chewing gum. The native era...
What? Really? You can do all that with maple syrup? Really?
Iroquois once prized the dried sap for its pleasant flavor and medicinal effects, said to promote physical endurance and concentration. Despite the fact that maple syrup is highly valuable as an export for Canada, Canadians also eat more of the stuff than almost the rest of the world combined.
Really?
While Canada produces over 80% of the maple syrup in the world, that's 13.2 million gallons in 2021, it exports just over 7 million gallons. This seems to suggest, though no official government data seems to be maintained, that Canadians eat upwards of 6 billion gallons of maple syrup every year.
No way. That is so funny. So it's like a fact. It's all but confirmed. Canadians don't just make all the maple syrup. You guys eat the most of it. Canada isn't even the biggest country by far, and you consume the most maple syrup. It's not even a stereotype anymore. It's just the facts.
That's about half a litre per person per year. Maple forests are a finite resource, and competition might encourage a drop in quality as producers would look for ways to undercut the competition, all the processes that led to various imitation syrups becoming popular around the world, all except for in Canada.
Yes, that in America we have so many imitation maple syrups. Like, that's actually the syrup that I'm used to. That's what I think of when I think of syrup, is the imitation fake stuff.
The syrup must flow, and so, similar to governments such as Italy with olive oil or Mexico with both tequila and Tabasco sauce, the Canadian government officially tolerates this market collusion in the interest of a high-quality syrup supply. Still, complaints of the heavy-handed tactics of the Syrup Federation have persisted over the half-century since its founding. Many paint the Federation as a maple mafia, and the bootleggers and black market syrup producers as a resistance of freedom fighters. The Federation is
What is that? What? What? I can't tell if they're like exaggerating this for drama or if there's really a maple syrup mafia.
Alleged over the past 50 years to have created a maple syrup Gestapo which seeks out bootleg or fake maple syrup, guards forests to interdict pirates, inspect cellars and stores,
What?
and cooperates with Canadian Mounties to raid bootleggers, seize bank accounts, and organize syrup stings against black market organizers. Critics note that the cartel keeps prices high to juice profits and takes an extortionate 12.5% of the proceeds of all syrup sales. Whether
I genuinely can't tell if he's joking or not. Maple syrup Gestapo? People going out if you're trying to make poor quality maple syrup, controlling the prices, controlling the distribution. Who are these people? How much money is in this? What's going on? What is this? This is not what they taught us about Canada here in America. This is not what I learned.
you view the syrup pirates as noble warriors against the tyranny of the sugar barons, or as common thieves, you have to admit that the entire situation is 100% Canadian.
Oh my god. That was fascinating. Fascinating in a way that I didn't even know. I I first am shocked to learn that there is a Canadian strategic maple syrup reserve that does exist. But after watching this video, it makes a lot more sense to me. Like, this taught me about how important maple syrup is to Canada. That's just a fact. Like, Americans, we might think it's kind of silly just because maple syrup, it's like this innocuous product that you're just like, oh, syrup? Why is that important? You know, but it's not even silly. It's, Canada makes the most of it, sells the most of it. Canada, it sounds like, consumes the most of it. And it's so important that there's some kind of a weird legal cartel monopoly thing going on, which I don't even want to know too much about, or I feel like they're going to come after me. It's just, this was really a great video. It's actually really interesting. Anyway, if you enjoyed this as well, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment with your thoughts on the Canadian Maple Syrup Reserve. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Canada and seeing Canadian things I've never seen before, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.